Right, hear me out. Not everything that gets called autism is autism, and it needs saying. Because they had a comment on my video this morning on Reddit this morning that was saying I was labelled as a criminal for my autistic traits and it ruined my life. Hi, I'm Jade. I'm a private psychotherapist and I run Planet Pure, which is now my focus, which is a community of autistic people in a space where we begin to understand ourselves rather than continue to blame ourselves. So this is really fitting. Honestly, I've seen this more than people realise. And I don't know if anybody else is into like psychology or like crime documentaries, but it's not even direct. It's actually really subtle. It's repeated. It's systematic, because I've watched that many that I've started to notice a pattern. And any time that somebody has done something really extreme or harmful or violent, often a diagnosis of autism is mentioned. And if you search it yourself, like you literally start calling it out, like crimes that have been committed by autistic people, experts will emphasize, or at least AI will emphasize, violent acts that are committed by autistic individuals is rarely anything to do with their autism, because having autism doesn't make a person a killer. But the reality is, if you watch these documentaries, you start to see the seeding of this idea, and then people start to piece those things together. And no one, not even professionals on there, actually explain the difference. And you've not come to the right place if you think that you're not going to get a balanced argument and debate on this. So yes, I know that autistic people are capable of committing crimes, and they are capable of doing horrific things, just like anybody in the human race can. But there is something that doesn't get questioned or challenged enough, so here I am to do it. Which is autism always the right explanation? Or is it the most available one? And people don't like talking about it because it often involves children. I know that's uncomfortable, but hear me out. Children cannot be diagnosed with things like antisocial personality disorder. They cannot be labelled as sociopaths or psychopaths. So what happens instead when a child is showing that trajectory? So you might have a child that is showing clear signs of volatility, the missing of your secondary social emotions, like empathy, like guilt, like shame. They have differences in how they feel towards other people. And that difference ends up needing a label because it is still causing some sort of effect. So where does it go? Often it gets the label of autism. And I'm not saying that people who've been on these crime documentaries can't be autistic. Of course they can. But what I'm saying is that some of them actually, for me at least, and again, this is personal and observational, look like they're on a completely different trajectory. And that trajectory just isn't diagnosable yet. And we do have real life accounts of this. People who've said from a young age that they don't feel empathy, that the way that other people feel empathy towards people, but they can understand people. They have early signs of manipulation, a lack of remorse, shame and guilt. I read a book by a lady called Patrick called Sociopath. It was a brilliant book and it was really insightful into how she felt this young. She didn't have a dysfunctional family, but she knew she was different and she knew that she struggled with things, but she also knew that she was extremely charming and that she could navigate things to her advantage. And like I say, these people can navigate social situations, even if they've got no interest to. That is not in any way the same profile as autism. But when those early traits start to get grounded under autism, the lines get blurred. And once they're blurred, people stop separating them. They actually think that they are the same thing because effectively that is what they are being taught. So what ends up happening is things like actual autistic traits, like being direct, maybe struggling socially, expressing emotions differently, start to get labelled as things like cold, calculated, dangerous, when autism isn't inherently dangerous for the people. And not to even mention the missing parts, like the things that are never actually taught to us. Like, we don't hear about hyperempathy, we don't hear about being overwhelmed by guilt, we don't hear about being distressed, because we've got such a rigid, strong moral conviction. And how many autistic people can't even bear the idea of harming somebody. And yeah, I also know that that's not everybody's profile too, but it is the one that isn't framed very often, but the other one often is. And that framing sticks. It shapes how people see autism, and it also shapes, which is obviously my bread and butter, how autistic people see themselves. So I'm not saying this to deny any harm, but what I am saying is, are we identifying it properly? Because when you mislabel one thing into another, you don't just misunderstand that individual, you actually distort a perception of an entire group.